Because Jaiboue is just kind of like a weird concept in a way. It's just like an echelon of thoughts that are just thrown together and just stirred in a pot and just create something different. It's like you're only going to find one Jaiboue, you know.
This is a bit of a different interview that I typically do on Media Mayhem, but I have a TikTok creator here, but I don't think that sort of label is doing him any justice. I've got the TikTok user known as Jaiboue here. Now, please tell me, did I butcher that pronunciation?
It's actually butchered every time it is pronounced. You can say it however you want. There's Jaiboue, Jaiboue. That was the first time I heard Jaiboue. How'd you say it again?
I said Jaiboue because I wanted to pronounce the A and I.
Jaiboue.
Can you kind of describe yourself to me and what your account is? Because there isn't really a face to what your account is other than, you know, the blonde album cover.
I would say that my account is, I wouldn't say shit posts, but just high quality, postmodern, esoteric art, you know?
Yeah. And usually when I'd say that to people and be like, you know, they'd be like, no, I actually don't. I do. Because it's my brand of comedy. Is like when I came across your page, I think your account on my Media Mayhem page was one of the first ones that I followed that I was like, oh, this is an account I want to follow because they are doing it right and they're doing it in a way that I appreciate a lot. And, you know, a lot of people don't look at it as that. And that's kind of part of, I think, the masking of the content in that it's a lot more sophisticated and well put together than the audience is meant to believe it is.
Yeah, like every video I make, like I make scripts for it. Like I script out about every single video, and I go through like rewriting processes. It's like, it's very hands-on.
Yeah, and I relate to that too. I write scripts for all my videos, but I think the difference in the way that you do it is, like I said earlier, it almost comes across as if you are not scripting it. And that's where I think the talent comes in, where it's like, it's one thing to write something that's compelling and funny, but it's another to actually bring that to life. And I think that's what you do on your page really well. But I guess just kind of starting from the beginning, I did a really big deep dive on your TikTok page, which was just such a pleasure. I was sitting here last night cracking up at everything from the beginning to the end. And at first I was kind of under the impression that you were just like a RapTok meme page, but that's not the case. You have plenty of different kinds of videos about different subjects. So talk to me a little bit about how this whole thing started out, the Jaiboue TikTok account.
The arc, yeah. No, it all started in, I think, junior year during the summer beforehand. I just graduated from being a sophomore, and, you know, COVID happened, so I was just kind of stuck at home. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to start this TikTok thing. I've always wanted to, like, make content that makes people laugh, because, like, the previous year I was in my school's broadcast, and I just loved making content for it, like editing, script writing. But like the stuff that I made for it, it had to be heavily neutered, especially because it was for a school broadcast. So like I want to make a platform for myself where I can just do whatever the fuck I want.
That's literally what Media Mayhem is for me. And I have a very similar journey that you had in that sense of pandemic. And there's already a void in your life that you've been wanting to fill, and it's like, okay, let's do it. And I think something that a lot of people, and this is kind of under the umbrella of being, you know, I hate the term content creator because that belittles the actual videos that we make, but being that is, you know, I think the jumping off point is just saying, I'm gonna do this, and then you're doing it. And there's a lot of anxiety that builds in for me when I was starting off. Like, it took a month of me planning this stuff out of how I want my videos to look, where I want the logos at, and all that kind of stuff. And on your page, I've seen, like, a very constant progression of, like, there wasn't subtitles in the beginning, and then you moved them in, and then your editing style got a little bit cleaner, and you can see that improvement. Have you felt that through a lot of the work that you're doing, that it's gotten better as you've gone along?
Yeah, I've definitely felt a improvement over time in like quality audio. It's like one thing that I consider integral to like making videos is the audio aspect. I put a lot of time into the audio, and sometimes I listen to like older videos and like the distortion is like way too high. There's like static where there shouldn't be. Well, I've definitely felt like progression over time, because my videos has just kind of just been a constant building process of constantly trying out new ideas, getting better,
Yeah, and that's all it really is at the end of the day, is like constant experimentation. For me, at least, It's been that, because it sounded like you wanted to start your page because you knew you wanted to make people laugh, and you had the talent, but in this space, in school, you didn't have the full capacity to do that, and this TikTok page allows that. And for me, with Media Mayhem, it's like, I was already interviewing these actors, film directors with like Warner Brothers, Disney. I was doing what I always wanted to do, and I was growing up, which is interviewing the people I watch on screen. But I still had that side of me of like, I'm writing these articles and sending them. They're being sent to Warner, they're being sent to the studios. This is all doctored to a certain extent. And I was like, I have a voice that I shine through the podcasts I did in college. But, graduating, I was like, I need something else. And Media Mayhem was that. And yesterday I went to the bottom of my videos and kind of crept up, and I was like, Jesus. Like, the progression I've made, I started it 6 months ago, is just like incredible. And I think reflecting on that is really important.
Is that you planned it out, but then like over time it's like you developed something that you couldn't have planned out, something that could only be achieved with just constant practice and experimenting.
And a big fear of mine on TikTok has been like, oh, what if it doesn't perform well, and that lessens the traction on my channel. And I've worked to kind of throw those anxieties out of my head of like just doing it. Like just going ahead and doing it. Like the Astro World, when I was like the first person to cover that on TikTok, I put that video on my portfolio because I was like, I got 3 million views on a news story I posted about. That's more clicks than like CNN would get. And so I do think like all that work that we're both putting in will eventually lead to something greater, but we still love what we're doing along the way.
Yeah. Is that I enjoy what I do, but I definitely feel like eventually I could do something a lot greater, and I don't know what that is yet, but just working on like TikTok, video, just media, it's just like very enjoyable to see what I end up with.
Yeah, and with your page specifically, and what drew me to it in the beginning was you possess this niche on TikTok. And I think that is like the number one thing that I would tell people trying to make a page or start making content is, what is your niche? People might say, oh, I'm going to make hip hop content. Okay, a lot of people make hip hop content. How are you going to approach it? And you approach it from this postmodernistic, ironic sort of way that is so hard to replicate with authenticity. So there's not people out there ripping you off, or at least ripping you off and getting traction for it. And same for me. I don't really see a lot of people doing song reviews the way I'm doing it on TikTok, and I think that's one of the biggest things. So, did you always have this sort of niche mindset of how you wanted to produce your videos, or did you just have an idea, put it on paper, have an idea, put it on paper?
No, I always the first video I made. No, it was like my first bunch of videos I made were about monkeys, and that was, I wouldn't say entirely planned, but it's like, okay, I'm going to make something, but I need to find not a community, but I just need to make sure that there will be a group of people that will stick around with that kind of content, because it's like you can make literally anything and it could get popular, but the next day if you post something that's completely different, no one's going to follow you or continue watching you. It's like you have to stay consistent in a way,
Absolutely. And sort of what you said there about, like, oh, will this piece of content work tomorrow with trends and stuff? I think a lot of people undervalue, or a lot of creators like undervalue the position that they are in as a content strategist. Like, you are strategizing your own content. And I just think a lot of these more corporate, I guess, categorizations of putting a label under that, it's like, it's kind of boring, but if you like getting opportunities outside of TikTok and building that way, it's like, I think those things are really important. And I think just a lot of people are selling themselves short unknowingly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what I mean. A lot of people like undervalue what they can do or what they could do and decide to just limit themselves just because they feel like that there's only one way to do this, or, oh, these people are doing it, so I might as well do it this way. It's like you're going to see like 100 different AJs, 100 different Slaters, but they already did it first. They already collected that niche and they already developed a following that knows them only for that specific kind of content, what they do. And it's like, you're only going to find one Jaiboue,
Yeah, exactly. And it's those small, like, little sort of markers that I think really put somebody on like they're this person creator. They make these kinds of videos. Yeah. My question to you on that end is, how did you make yourself identifiable from the start?
Well, I made myself identifiable by just like, at first it's like, okay, I made a couple videos, but how are people going to recognize that this is the same guy, or how are they going to recognize that, okay, this is something continuous? And so I'm pretty sure it was the third video I placed my profile pic, the Frank Ocean epic fail one. He just witnessed it on top. It was the thumbnail, the first thing you see. And for that, I just kind of just stuck with it since, like, I became identifiable with my extreme use of Vine thuds to the point where it just cuts itself off, where it just becomes something completely different,
Exactly. And with that too, I think what's interesting is there's kind of a line between, and especially for people like us that really care about the stuff that we are talking about and we put a lot of work into it, it's like, where is that line between you being yourself and sort of putting your voice out there and your style of comedy? Where's the line between that and pleasing an audience and bringing an audience in? Like, how do you balance that?
I balance it with just the idea is that, okay, am I proud of this content? Is this something that I feel like I would make with everything else, like, in my portfolio, everything else I've made? And also with my viewers, people that like follow me and enjoy my content, would they say that this is something that Jaiboue would make? And I'm not saying that in a way, okay, it has to be another funny video, but it's just like, I developed this sort of niche where it's like I cover these topics where it's just like no one else will cover them. Like, I made a YouTube video about Among Us books, it's just like, you need to find this weird sort of niche corner where it's just like no one else has thought of this before, or it's just everyone else has seen this and never gave it a second thought, and I'm going to think about it 3 different times, You
put that in such a understandable way of, it is like a progressive sort of thing, but I think you have such a good handle on that. And again, tying to that is this sort of idea of a viral formula. And, I've been, for people that don't know, I've been a multimedia journalist for years outside of this, starting when I was going to college, and I had a lot of success in that sort of mainstream kind of journalistic way of writing articles, doing podcasts for my university, interviewing people, on a big press circuit level. But that was my first experience. I still needed to galvanize my voice, and Media Mayhem was my way of doing that. But starting out, I was like, how do I get traction? And I realized that was just an ever developing thing of this, what makes a video go viral? Well, you can try and pinpoint it to like a bullet point list and, sell it for $50, but it's not going to be accurate. If
you come up with this formula, it's just, those videos are just going to be static. It's like, it's going to just hit marks. It's kind of just like a TV show where the second act happens at like 10 minutes in, and the resolution happens like near the end, like maybe 5 to 10 more. It's just like you need to constantly do something diverse, because if you do something predictable, eventually it's just like the joke. People already know the joke. People already know the punchline. That's the point of subversion.
The way you're explaining this has me thinking, because this is kind of the first time I've interviewed somebody we're doing similar things and kind of in a similar sort of space on TikTok. And something on the app that I've noticed is like there's a pretty booming RapTok community, and that's a way that I've kind of crept myself in a little bit into, you know, what defines me on TikTok from other people's perspectives, from the other communities. And something I've noticed is like pages like yours, where it's like almost this kind of, you know, conscious comedy of everything you're touching on has some nuance to it, but it's also hyper specific to the type of comedy it is. Like you'll be talking about the philosophy one, you'll be talking about Socrates, Plato, and then boom, Kanye. And it's like that hits a niche, that hits a cornerstone, and sometimes it hits it really, really hard. And, you know, talk a little bit about some of those, like, did you know videos that you have where it's like it is identifiable and trendy in a way, but it's like very unique every time.
Oh, my did you know videos, those ones, it's like those kind of come out of like, you know, internet rabbit holes in a way. Like you find something and then you just keep thinking about it and keep thinking, is that, okay, I want to talk to somebody about this, or I want people to think about this in the same way that I do, or get a similar perspective or whatnot. I think of something is like, okay, I want to talk about this topic, but I want to like make people maybe somewhat think, or make people like think in a certain way and then completely subvert it, and then have them just have like this thought was like, wait, why did you mention this? What is the point of this?
Right. Same here, because my sort of mission with Media Mayhem from the beginning has been to develop media literacy in my audience, and, you know, reaching them with these, like, I sort of my way into it was like, all right, I've been talking about Playboi Carti for years, but I'm also a journalist that dives in really introspectively to this content. And sort of my start with that was I interviewed Mexi Codro independently, outside of all this label stuff, when he produced From Florida with Love for Drake. And I talked to him about, like, I was like, you know, the Carti beef, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But my whole goal with that was like, I know people know who this guy is and all this stuff, and that he was, you know, Carti's OG producer, but there's so much more to it than that. Like, how do you get to that place? How do you progress from that and not get like caught up thinking about things in that way, where it's like, oh, that's so cool, you were like 1 degree of separation from Playboi Carti. It's like, yeah, that's cool, that's how I bring people in, but then I surprise them by giving them a real interview. Real, right? Real. And
it's just kind of that like bait and switch shit, like
exactly, but in a smart way.
I'm trying to think about something. Yeah,
we're not duping our audiences. We're giving them more than they ever really expect.
More than they thought. You know, my did you know video about Donkey Kong went in about fucking the Bible, or like I've had this idea for a while where it's like sort of the same thing, where like I talk about Playboi Carti, and then I kind of just derive that into a talk about like fucking Marxism and shit. Is it like, oh, a whole lot of red. Red is in politics represents the blood of workers who've suffered capitalism, you know. And I just keep going about that, like, oh yeah, Carti in his hit song "I'm So Addicted to Drugs," he's talking about drugs in a way to cope with living in this hyper-capitalist society, where using drugs is idolized and seen as one of the only ways out, you know.
Carti and Uzi were playing the PlayStation, actually, to, you know, oppose these expectations, you know, on a
oppose
father.
The expectations that comes out of fatherhood. Is just like, you can't be confined. You can't just be a good father. Sometimes they need character building, you know?
Exactly. And I think that's Playboy Cardi and Marxism is exactly how I'd like bunch. If I was to bunch your channel into something, it might be something like that kind of video. And
Yeah.
it's great. I love that.
Just you grab two not really related things, and then you just find a way to just tie them all together.
And, normally when you don't have, like, let's say your face in a profile picture, it's a logo. Like, for me, it's like this Media Mayhem logo that I put on everything. For you, it's not that. It's a Frank Ocean album cover for Blonde. Tell me about that. Yeah. What started that?
What started is that I needed to find a funny picture, and I thought it'd be funny. And I thought, like, over time I'd change it to, like, something else, but no, it just kind of stuck with that,
Well, in 4 years, when Frank Ocean drops another album, you never know.
Yeah, I might change it to that album cover, maybe.
When he releases a new album, you should change it.
Still epic film.
Make it Channel Orange. Go back. Go back in time.
I've been kind of, like, identifiable in a sense with the very specific, sometimes repeatable energy I use. Like, my friends, like, when they think of me, they don't think of my face. They think about, like, the Frank Ocean pic. They think about Kanye. They think about SpongeBob. Just things that are just associated with me in a way, So
with sort of having Frank Ocean as your profile picture, it adds this sense of anonymity to your profile that it seems it's deliberate. So what are kind of like the benefits and drawbacks of keeping your identity outside of this?
Just keeping my identity outside of this is kind of just like, I want to create a separation between me and, well, this brand that is Jaiboue. And I'm not going to be someone that says Jaiboue's a character, because Jaiboue's clearly a extension of myself, And it's just like you and Media Mayhem, those are very tightly connected things. Like, Media Mayhem is you, your face is Media Mayhem. For me, the most connection I have with Jaiboue is just my voice, my ideas, everything else. I want to keep a sort of separation away. And it's not because if I ever want to move on to something, I'm not tied down. It's just like, I don't feel like my face or what I look like should really influence what people may think about my content or not,
100%. And I've always, like, throughout my life had a certain, like, insecurity about, like, putting my face out there. And TikTok was my first, like, I'm putting myself out there, I'm doing it. And I almost had this, like, weird moment when I did the Astroworld video where I woke up to 800,000 views, and I was like, dude, I looked like shit last night, and 800,000 people saw that shit. And there is a certain sort of...
We're on to 3 million.
I know, and now, it's a 3 million. And, that's obviously special. I'm like, okay, cool, that's awesome. But what I think, looking at you specifically, it's like, I think it's really almost beautiful in a way that you're able to foster this community based on your content and style kind of alone. Out there is no personal bias in there or I guess implicit biases of what you look like and things like that, that plays into it. For me, though, I think a big part of it was, like, being white and talking about hip hop is like, I am a guest in the game, no matter how I put it. Doesn't matter how many articles I write, I'm a guest in the game. And I think that's important to show to a certain extent, but also because, like, I was ready to, like, I knew I was doing the podcast, all that.
For me, it's like my identity, obviously it does tie into, like, the content I produce in a way, but I wouldn't say it is essential to understand me or what is Jaiboue, because Jaiboue is just kind of like a weird concept in a way. It's just like an echelon of thoughts that are just thrown together and just stirred in a pot and just create something different,
Absolutely. And how old are you again?
I'm 17 years old.
You're the most well-articulated 17-year-old I've probably ever spoken to. I think that's just worth throwing out there. Do you read a lot?
Well, I try to read a lot on my bookshelf. You've heard of Infinite Jest before, right?
Oh, you're reading Foster Wallace, my man.
Yeah, I got that. I got House of Leaves. I got the Rorschach text, Infinite Jest, and it's like the thing about those books is it's a part of this genre, this very like recently named one, and it's called ergodic writing, where it's just like it kind of transcends the media of like paper form booking, right? Like the best way to experience it is on paper, holding it in your hands. Like it's not the same if you read it on like online or like a Kindle, and that's because the book itself, reading is a very active experience where you have to like sometimes maybe like flip the book upside down, or like you have to like read in a certain order because the words are just scattered. It's like it's very illustrative. It's like it's an art form in a way where it's like poetry is making art with this, not the structure of words but the order of words. Now you articulate it. But ergodic writing is more of art in the sense where you literally create a picture with it.
You know, I think one of my favorite things in high school English, it was my favorite class. It was like the only like AP class I took on because like I wanted to. And, you know, having those, I guess, sort of little seminars of like talking about stuff, that continues in college. And that is really what fed my kind of itch for creativity, introspection, and all those things. And I actually had a college professor who was kind of my mentor in that way of like, he told me like, keep going with that kind of stuff. And, you know, I wrote a 25-page analysis of one Simpsons episode for him.
Go to baby.
Yeah. If you're wondering, it's the episode, it's Mr. Plowman, the Simpsons episode, if you're curious. But, you know, just the ideas that you have right now about all this stuff, the more you participate in this discourse that you're already doing, you're going to get so much further ahead of not only where you are right now, but ahead of everyone else, in that you will be the one starting these conversations, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, you just have like an incredible outlook on things like that.
It's like, it's not really when I was young, but just really throughout my whole life, I was like a bit of an introvert in a way. And it's just like, I had this moment where it's like, if people aren't going to actively talk to me, I have to be the one to push people out of their boundaries. I can't just wait for someone to do that for me, because like COVID happened. Everyone's kind of just an introvert in a way, you know? And it's kind of funny to like go and talk to people and they are just like not scared shitless, but they like haven't had like a full on conversation with somebody, or it's just like they don't really like know what to do or like talk properly, you know?
I found myself in that space a little bit because in college I was like incredibly extroverted and in all my class, like, you know, because I had to sort of train myself to that, because I would walk into rooms interviewing, you know, Oscar-winning actors, directors, and all this stuff. You know, I couldn't walk in and mumble my questions. I had to own myself in that situation. And, you know, I kind of had to like throw myself into that. But, you know, I think a lot of people going at their own pace will definitely like discover, you know, what's their avenue in whatever creativity or whatever they want to do. What's the most proud you've ever been making a TikTok?
It's kind of hard because like, the first video I posted, well, like that blew up in itself. Like I think 60K in first or second day. But it's like, I think the moment where like, I found out where, like you say, you don't like using the word content creator. I like to say I create multimedia works, multimedia projects. And that's hard to say.
And I guess if you can't think of one, like, which makes sense because, you know, it becomes this sort of like jumble of videos of stuff that you've made. I guess, do you ever go back and reflect on the stuff that you've made and sort of appreciate your work? Because that's something I had to do to keep myself going.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've definitely had times where I like went back and I binged my own videos. Like, It's the thumbnail is Gangster SpongeBob, and there's text that says, "You know, I made it big." And it was just me talking about celebrities owning like monkeys and shit, and how it was like really unethical. You know, there's that one. My ancient Greece video, and this is what happens when you die. I posted those back to back, well, in between with the pyramids video. But those two videos are something I think about a lot. And that's because it's just me at pure creativity. It's just, okay, I'm going to make this, kind of freestyle it, but I'm going to, if I see something where I can improve on, I'm going to improve it as much as possible. And if I can think of an edit, I'm going to put that edit there, you know? And those two videos blew up. They did incredibly well.
I want you to hop into this hypothetical with me for a second. Is that okay? Get in the car with me?
All right. Yeah. I'm all right with that. Get in the car.
So, you know, you're chilling at home, and Kanye knocks on your doorstep, right? And as one does, you open the door. And, you know, he puts his hand on one of your shoulders, and he then plugs his coveted Donda stem player into one ear, and then whispers into the other, and says, "This is Yandi. Enjoy." And you're like, oh my God. But, okay, you hear a familiar sound. You hear a colorful flute and a really solid thumping 808 in rapid succession. And it hits you. Wheezy out of here. It's Superstar by Future and Young Thug. But Kanye doesn't know that.
Holy shit!
Kanye doesn't know that, okay? He thinks this is his magnum opus. It has never seen the light of day. Do you break the truth to him?
I really want to hear Yandi. I'll be like, yo Yeezy, yo Ye. This DJ Khaled's dildo. This ain't your magnum opus.
So you'll tell him about the DJ Khaled TikTok account that's one-upping him?
Honestly, if I ever get the opportunity, I'd talk to anybody about DJ Khaled's dildo. I've brought it up in conversation before. It is just a very great conversation starter.
And sort of, you know, my if we can switch, my last question for you is like, you know, I've seen you cover rappers that I really like. Pierre Bourne is one. You shouted out Alfredo, Freddie Gibbs for He Should Have Won the Grammy. That was my favorite album of the year. Do you see a rapper that you want to cover in 2022? I know we talked about Cardi earlier, but who else do you think you can take a nice, you know, sort of stylistic take on in 2022? Mm-hmm. Have you thought about that at all?
I feel like a rapper there's a lot of them, for example, but I guess I want to do a more in-depth exploration of Viper, you know, because you've heard of Viper the rapper a lot, especially if you've been to my videos. He is just a anomaly when it comes to the rap game, because it's just like people only know him as a meme, even though he has a lot of established history in it. Like, he was a part of DJ Screwed Up Click. And it's like, you can definitely see that, like, similar sound.
Oh, yeah. The slowed and almost sort of like...
And he also established, like, not the idea, but the sort of similar sounds you get of cloud rap, like, completely separate from when Lil B explored it as well.
Yeah, just, like, totally different zones. Where would you place Space Ghost Perp in between Viper and Lil B?
Space Ghost Perp is a anomaly. I would say Space Ghost Perp is what Kanye would have been if Kanye never popped off, and it was just only unadulterated mental illness, you know? Space Ghost Perp is amazing when it comes to producing, but oh my God, he needs to find people that actually cares about him. It's like...
And that's my thing with Kanye too, is like half the stuff he says is because the people around him aren't looking after him and aren't trying. They're just trying to like stay in that space and not get, you know, kicked out or whatever.
People look at celebrities or just look at people on TV and think, oh, okay, they put themselves out there, so I guess that gives me permission, a way to treat them as something different, and that's just not true in like any way. It's like, just because you've heard a couple Kanye albums or you read a couple news articles about him doesn't mean that he's a character, someone that should be analyzed in a way someone who was just completely different from everybody. Because what you're doing is that, first of all, you're feeding to the sort of like depersonalization. It's like, oh, okay, Kanye's different. He's like nothing else. Kanye, it's like, ego is a very important thing, and ego is definitely something that can definitely help people. But when Kanye sees shit where people just continuously hype them up and say that they can never do wrong, that just leads to more outrageous behavior.
Thank you so much for watching. As you can tell, it's pretty late when I'm editing this. I'll have all of Jaibou's links down in the description below, and if you've made it this far, I really do appreciate it. I hate asking you to like, subscribe, comment, well, because I hate focusing on analytics. So if you could help me out a bit and do all of that so I can focus a little bit more on the content, I greatly appreciate it. So many interviews coming within the next month or two, and something else very special is also coming soon. Thank you.